Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock, a live stream for June 3rd, 2021. We are back with one of our favorite super stocks, Tetra Bio-Pharma, TBPMF, Dr. Guy Chamberlain. Guy, welcome back.
I'm hoping you're going to soon say, Jack, your only super stock.
No. There's more. We need a lot of super stocks.
No, I just want.
You're you could be the first 100 bagger. You could be the first.
I'm good for that.
That's what we need. We need a 100 bagger because we've had a couple of 20s, 20Xs. We've had a 50X. We need a 100X. This is the one.
Okay, that's my goal.
And then I could retire after that. That's it.
Perfect.
The 100X. Okay. So basically, for anybody that's just tuning in, our goal at Wall Street Reporter's live stream is just to bring you those companies which have that 10X to 100X upside potential. And again, we haven't had the 100X. We've had the 10s, the 20s, the 50s, X's. So, we're going to find out today if Tetra is going to be that 100X. It has that 100X potential. So every company we bring you has three things in common. One, they're going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. Two, there are multiple catalysts in place which could ignite that growth and value creation. And the company, number three, is they're at a key inflection point right now where things are just about to take off. Right, we're at that threshold of explosive growth where there's drug approvals, products entering markets, all those good things. And Tetra really checks off all three of those boxes. So, Guy, with that said, I want to basically do just a quick update, just to focus on some of the key catalysts that you have the next 30, 60 days, because we're getting into the summer months, and investors before they go on vacation, they want to know should they buy, sell, or hold right here with Tetra, right? So let's start off with the top three. The Reborn trial, if you can give us an update, what kind of near-term catalyst can we get out of that?
Well, the Reborn trial, Quick Sleep is basically, driving right into that $60 billion pain market. The goal of that trial is really to, simply said, beat the pants off the immediate release morphine. As we're moving on, obviously, this trial for us is really, it's really there to prove that Quick Sleep, basically a botanical cannabis drug, when it gets approved by the FDA, is going to do a major dent in the opioid market. And that's key. If you're a patient, you're suffering, we're going to show that Quick Sleep can relieve your pain extremely fast. At the AGM, our annual general meeting last week, I basically told people that we had, let's say the first patient was actually entered what we call the screening phase. And it's important for shareholders to really understand this in the trial. What's really important, because I really want to beat the pants off morphine. I mean, this is, to me, it's a goal. I know this drug can do it. Quick Sleep, pretty confident on the science we have, patented as well. And that patient went through a full week where the physician of the trial makes sure that the background pain meds, so the opioids they're on for treating what we call the background pain. See, the breakthrough pain is when you get a flare-up. So these patients with breakthrough pain can get anywhere from 1 to 10 flare-ups in a day. And that's really what really, pardon the word, but really kills the person. It's a massive acute pain. And that's what these immediate opioids are aimed at, reducing that pain. So we're going to show that our drug can do it in 5 minutes. Well, that patient actually finished that 7 days. So, I told AGM we have that first patient is in that screening phase. Well, they were randomized yesterday, and they entered the Quick Sleep arm yesterday. So we have our first patient officially in the Reborn trial, and we'll be monitoring that patient. So it's an open label. So that's great because I get to see the data when it comes out. Obviously, we're continuing to enroll other patients, and we're going to try and expand the enrollment also as fast as we can. So I think those are going to be the game changers because as soon as we start to see a signal, be it positive, which is what I'm expecting, then obviously we'll be, updating the market as soon as we get some data.
Okay, so basically, this is it's a morphine alternative, right? So that's what is it? It's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity right there, and you have And you have, so right now you have the trial, which basically just started, like literally just now.
Yeah, from a shareholder point of view, you could say for them, it starts when the patient gets, kind of the drug in the arm type of thing. For us, obviously, it starts way back because of the whole bunch of regulated activities, but officially the first patient has consumed the quick sleeve yesterday.
Okay. Okay. So yes. So this is actually, okay. So they got it yesterday, the first dose. So we should know, like, as you said, pretty quickly, if it works or it doesn't work, because either they feel the pain or they don't feel the pain, right?
Correct. So for me, honestly, yeah, we'll get to know, this first patient. Obviously, if they respond very well, I'll be very, very happy. I may wait for a couple of patients to see the data before I kind of give a signal how it's going. But, because obviously it could be a fluke, but like I said, I'm very confident. We have lots of clinical data that really shows how fast quick sleep works on people. And that's key because that's the benefit of the drug. An agonist of the CB1 receptor is really key in pain management.
And so the idea is the quick sleep works in roughly 5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes. Okay. Okay. And so the first patient is on. So the question is, so when? Okay. And how many patients are you going to have in total in this?
In total, it's 20 patients for this.
20 patients.
But it's like having 40 because it's a crossover. So when they finishes their quick sleep, they then get morphine. So we can evaluate how that same person now is going to respond to morphine. And the opposite. We'll have some that'll start on morphine. Afterwards, we'll switch them to quick sleep and we'll see how they basically respond to that.
Okay. How long is it going to take to get 20 patients in total, to get those 20 people?
Well, we have the choice to double the sites. That's been in our prospectus document. We declared that in the public, so I'm not telling you any secrets. So if we find that our enrollment's not going fast enough, then we'll basically double the number of sites, increase it to 2, basically, so we can increase the enrollment. So we provided shareholders with kind of a conservative assessment of when the last patient would be in, but obviously, as the CEO, my goal is to try to accelerate that, to beat that time. So that's typically what we try and do here.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. And in terms of, okay, so you got the trial going. When can you start? What kind of news flow can investors expect to see? Because I think people are going to be watching this trial. This is like, I think, key catalyst for the stock right now. Right. What kind of news flow can we expect over the next, 30 days on this?
Well, without giving any, how could I say, regulated material secrets, like they say, obviously there'll be the feedback on the patients. I think some of our strategies, how we're going to increase enrollment, I think they can expect that. I think that's going to be positive news as well for shareholders to see that, because they want to see this trial go down as fast as possible, so everybody can find out the official answer, say, to the trial. Is this superior? Because think of it. Every day, multiple people get prescriptions for opioids to treat pain. If I can prove that my drug is superior to morphine and speed of relief, many physicians are going to hesitate and say, well, wait a sec. Why should I give you this, opioid when I got a much safer drug? Like some questions I'm seeing going on the screen as we're talking, if I'm treating your pain and I have something that doesn't potentially cause central respiratory depression that can lead to death, why shouldn't this become a first-line therapy, for pain? Why shouldn't physicians hesitate on giving an opioid and say, wait a sec, I got this drug, and start prescribing that? This is where we're going. And I think this is a key signal. If this drug does work like we think it does, move aside opioids. Here we come.
Okay. Okay. So massive opportunity right there. So we should be seeing some, I guess, this next 30 days or so, we should be getting some news on that. On getting some updates on the trials.
Correct.
Okay. Number two up. You have the Reduvo. That was that announced today that this is you're getting the Health Canada thing going. When is so? This is you're expecting approval this year, right?
Yes, we're expecting the verdict this year. So for us, it was fantastic news. Last Friday, just after the AGM, we got the official letter that came in from Health Canada, which is great. I think I've been on your show saying, we We had answered every single question they had. So we were expecting this letter, but until you get the letter, you're not officially in that last, say, round of analysis called the scientific review. And we're pretty confident because, 20-something years ago, Health Canada had already approved dronabinol. It was withdrawn 15 years ago for manufacturing issues, stability. But now we have all that settled. So, we're not expecting any, how can I say, scientific issues that would lead not to a drug being approved. But typically, a regulator has what they call the screening phase, which we just finished, to try and get rid of your drug, so they don't have to review it, because the more questions they need to ask, the longer it takes, and they look bad too. So they try and get rid of drugs that will not make it to the end. So for us, this is a major step. This is typically where big pharma announces that their, thin candidate has made it into a review. This is the first news. Usually an institutional-based stock would hear that the drug is a candidate to the market. So for us, this is a major point, because as a biotech, we're getting closer to the stage where we're going to have revenues. And this is a major inflection point. Most stocks usually react very, very positively at this stage in an announcement.
Okay. In Reduvo, okay, so just again, if you can just, anybody that's new, just what's the market that it addresses? How big is the opportunity?
Well, it's kind of the official market it's in is for the chemo-induced nausea and vomiting. So basically, you're talking about a hell of a lot
for cancer patients.
Cancer patients that have nausea from the chemotherapy. But keep in mind that 95% of the prescriptions are off-label given to patients with pain. So it's the potential of the market here in Canada. Just the nausea of chemotherapy is about 80 million market potential. But if you add that to pain, it's a major step, for a small biotech to penetrate this market.
What kind of pain? And this can, and now Reduvo can also. Is this essentially like can it be used?
Is essentially a first THC oil capsule as a prescription drug here in Canada. So all those physicians that were hesitating, don't want to recommend medical cannabis, can now say, "I'll prescribe you a drug that you can get reimbursed by your provincial government."
Okay, but is Reduvo a morphine? Can it be a morphine alternative or no? It's just.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's again the benefits. Once we start to prove that THC can reduce pain very significantly, better than an opioid, and it's safer, this is where the game begins. That's where it's important to have a portfolio, a company like Tetra. I can go and start to say to physicians, "Okay, here's my Reduvo." They'll say, "Aren't you the manufacturer of Quicksleep?" "Yes, we are." Here's some info on Quicksleep. You can read about it, plus the trials will be published. So eventually people start to realize that, a THC-based drug is going to be effective in pain. And that's the way it works in pharma. We educate physicians through trials. We publish the data. Physicians then decide, okay, I'm going off label. We can't promote it, the Reduvo, for pain relief, but obviously the physicians, will read the articles themselves, and they'll put 1 + 1 together, and they'll say, okay, I'm giving this to my patient.
Okay, got it. Okay, so basically, so essentially, the Reduvo can be used for pain off-label, and you're expecting approval of that this next what?
Our job now is once it's in the review, our regulatory affairs then begins to interact with Health Canada, and our job is to try and get all their questions as fast as we can, answered as fast as we can, to help even Health Canada beat its timeline. It has a performance clause as well. So, it's in their favor to review this fast, just like for us, it's in our favor to get it done fast.
And so for Reduvo, again, just what's this? It's like an $80 million market in Canada.
$80 million is the market size of chemo-induced nausea.
But the 80 million, that only just covers the chemo. It doesn't cover the potential off-label use.
Exactly.
The off-label use could be 10 times bigger.
Oh yeah, at least. And 95% of prescriptions were off-label.
Okay. Yeah. There's a bunch of drugs out there where 90% of the market is off-label or more. It could be like 100 times, 50 times bigger. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Finally, let's talk about what are you doing with the sepsis? The sepsis drug.
So sepsis, we're basically at the stage, like I announced at the AGM, and I can't go beyond what I said at the AGM because it's not in the public domain. So we were assembling the IND to submit to the regulators. So the regulators, Health Canada, FDA, had reviewed our clinical protocols, had reviewed all of our toxicology data, said the drug is fantastic, safe for humans. Even Health Canada commented how robust our package was compared to other companies. And this is typical of Tetra. We don't, how could I say, we cross every single I that there is. We do it by the book, so people don't see us, how could I say, trying to skip to go faster. Now, so we're assembling everything. We're pretty confident of that. We just had some animal data that came out also showing its potential to stop the acute respiratory distress in animals. It's a first study. We'll be doing others as we go forward. But for us, COVID is basically a proof of concept. If we can get this drug fast, yes, it'll help patients. But for us, if we can get a proof of concept to show the potential of our drug for that huge market of sepsis, because the sepsis market is 132 billion. It's not small. It's bigger than even the whole CNS market together. So this drug represents potentially basically half of my market potential of all my drugs, which added up to about 300 something billion dollars of a market potential. So this is not insignificant. So this is where we're at. So we're pretty confident everything will go well. And the regulators, you know, they were very, very nice in that they modified our protocol, presented it as what we call an adaptive protocol, which means as I start my healthy volunteers, once I've given the first dose to them, if after 5 days if the committee finds it was safe, this is a committee of the, say, the clinic that runs the trial, then we can start the patients right away on that dose. So this is fantastic. This is the type of thing where you want to see the regulator actually reach out and help the companies move forward for patients. And so we were very, very happy to get that feedback from Health Canada.
So when does the first patient get the needle in the arm for the ARDS?
Well, that's the thing I can't answer yet. That's not in the public domain. So unfortunately, it wasn't yesterday. So it could be in the future.
Okay. And then within the next 90 days?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, next 60 days?
I'll stop there because I'll get too close.
Okay. So, but within the next 90 days, so before September.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. So that's okay. So that, I mean, because I understand. So that's that's kind of one of the big catalysts is people are waiting for that to happen.
Well, for me, the biggest catalyst is actually the volunteers. I know everybody's looking at the patients. Of course, if I was a patient, I'd be looking for the patients too. But if I look at this as the CEO of Tetra, the biggest thing I want to show the market is basically that my CB2 agonist is safe from a CNS point of view. Basically, for people, all the drugs historically that have been CB2 agonists, receptor agonists, many of them have died, if not majority of them that made it to the clinic. They died because there were too many side effects related to the brain. So basically neurological based side effects. In animals, obviously, we didn't see that, so we think our drug is safe. But if I can show in healthy volunteers that my HU308 molecule that's in the ARDS 003 is safe from a neurological point of view, that's a game changer in this field because all those drugs have failed for that reason. So that to me is the biggest game changer for that drug.
Okay. Let's jump to a couple of questions. I've got a bunch of questions. So hopefully we can address all of them. Greg is asking, what has to happen for that to inject the first patient? If we can't know an exact date, what event enables that? So I guess he wants to know the path.
The event that enables it is the FDA either remaining silent, which means the IND goes into effect on its own, or they actually send us an email and say, you can go ahead. That's typically what happens at this stage.
Okay. Okay. So I think Greg also he's asking why not? I guess he's asking about the Reduvo. Why not mention the off-label use potential? Because the off-label use could be, you know,
we're not allowed by regulations. So
okay.
we get slapped by the regulators for doing that.
Okay, but in reality, that's what that's what
happens in practice.
Okay.
Here, for example, in the province of Quebec, we know that about 50% of our prescriptions are off-label, so it's not insignificant.
Okay. Okay, so we had a question here. This is actually a good question. Okay, so about the trial, This is for, I guess, Quicksleep. I guess, so the question is, why aren't people lining up for this trial if the demand is high? Why wasn't there hundreds of people to choose from to get only 20 to give it a shot? This is, good question.
That's an interesting question. When we have a clinical trial, we have what we call inclusion-exclusion criteria. So you have to meet every single one of those criteria. So a lot of people get eliminated even before, say, you get to talk to the physician. So there are call centers, they take the call, and if you don't meet all of those criteria, they cannot allow you into the trial, because that person would obviously kind of be eliminated by the FDA when they would review the data. So it's okay, you let in 20 people, this person didn't meet all of the criteria, so you're out, and sorry, Tetra, you lose one data point. So you don't want that. So it's very, very severe. At this point as well, obviously, it's the patient's population of the clinic. But if we don't see enough, say, numbers of patients knocking at the door, then we can go to radio ads, we can do things like that. So those are choices we have at one point to, accelerate the enrollment.
Okay, a question about the Quicksleep. How long does it take? For how long does the pain go away, or does it have to be administered? How often do you have to take a dose?
Yeah, in the case of the Reborn trial with the breakthrough pain, is they'll take it each time they get a flare-up. Some people may get 3 to 10 flare-ups a day. We're hoping also to see that, let's say you take it at 9 a.m. for a flare-up. I'm hoping that you don't get the 10 a.m. flare-up. I'm hoping that you can push them off, the flare-ups. That would be something, as a drug developer, I'd love to see. And the duration of it will be interesting to see as well, because I'm hoping it'll be the same length that we saw in the pharmacodynamics, which can be a nice, clean, no need to use for the next 3 to 4 hours type of thing. But that's what the purpose of the trial is, so that we can discover what is that benefit to the patient. But every time I'm going to stop you from having to take an opioid, that's going to be, for me, is going to be fantastic, because that's what you want. You want them to take a drug that's not going to put their lives at risk in terms of respiratory depression.
Okay, we got a couple of questions. A couple of people are asking, essentially the same, similar question, which is, how do you know that you're going to get these, that there's not going to be, delays in these trials? Because essentially, it seems like there's always a delay with getting these trials going. What's the answer to that?
Once we announce the trial's going, the only delays you can have is that the patients aren't there. We saw that with COVID, for example. Many companies were hit by an absence of patients because the hospitals were focused on saving lives. Their whole resources were dedicated, say, to ARDS for COVID patients. So hopefully now with the vaccination and that, we should see a lot more referrals from hospitals to these clinics. And that's why also the timing of this is great, because right now, let's say, at least in the United States, COVID is, let's say, relatively well under control, and we're not expecting another wave if the vaccination is sufficient in the population. So in theory, we should be kind of out of the woods and get all the patients we need. That's usually the major slowdown. Another slowdown that's not expected for Reborn, because we have sufficient drug available for it. Typical is you run out of drug. But in the case of Reborn, we're well, supplied for this trial.
Okay. I don't know if we addressed this. So Julie's asking thoughts on turnaround approval for Reduval final review process.
Well, this is the final review process. We never have a crystal ball on how fast a government agency works. That's around the world. That's obviously up to our regulatory affairs. We hope we can get them to start sending questions as soon as possible. Usually it'll be silent the first month. We can start to get questions sometimes the second month, and we structure ourselves to be able to respond within 24 hours, so not to delay that. So that's where we work hard, is to reduce the time to respond. So we don't take a week or 2 weeks, say, to respond.
Okay. One thing that there was a news release a little while back about your patent on, that was for inhalation, the inhalation of THC for. Can you explain, what your patent covers, and what's, again, here's a question about, what kind of valuation, what's that worth?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It keeps coming back, and it's obviously we're vague about it because the patent isn't granted yet. But if you were to read the documents that are public on the patent, you would see that we have what we call unique composition of matter. And the unique composition of matter is what's being inhaled by people when you smoke or vaporize cannabis. And that's key to understand because obviously we've done a lot of clinical trials on what's inhaled or smoked by people, by vapor or smoked. So we know what enters the body. We have clinical data on the amounts of each cannabinoid and its derivatives because there's chemistry happening the moment you start to heat the dry bud, basically. And we studied that. We put intellectual property around that. And that's what we're doing is protecting the invention being basically taking a dried cannabis and converting it into a drug, which is what's inhaled. And that goes as far as levels in the blood. Once we protect all that, if you're another company and you want to sell a product and my patent's granted, you have to be careful that you're not infringing my intellectual property. If you are infringing it, you will have to negotiate a license and provide me with royalties on your sales. Because if you don't, then obviously I will come to a court and block your product because you're infringing my patent. So the potential in the inhalation route is tremendous.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a good question. Are you pleased and optimistic with how the trial is going in relation to your targets? I mean, it's a little bit early, no?
I'm happy. Yes, it's going well. I mean, if I compare to the bumpy road with, say, Plenitude with the DA, and we suffered with the granting of the specific Schedule I licenses during COVID. That was very, very slow. I mean, the shipment went very, very fast, crossed the border with the permits. Everybody was fast. We can't predict the governments. But in the case of Reborn, I think even some shareholders, when they realized the drug was actually at the site, they were surprised that it went that fast. So I'm very, very pleased that Reborn is going the way it is. I wish all the trials went that way, but that's what clinical research is.
Okay. Okay, so Reduvo, do you have a distribution partner for that in Canada?
No, right now our model has been to look at hiring on contracts, say some commercial distributors for that, but not licensing it to somebody else.
Okay, so you're going to distribute it yourself essentially
through contract firms. There are many firms in pharma for the sale and distribution of prescription drugs.
Okay. So how is that different than licensing? I mean, how would that be different? Like so in other words, you'd give it.
So you're paying basically an amount for the service of the how many visits they'll do, say, to a physician's office, so on and so forth. And versus if I license it, then obviously I'm just getting a certain percent on the net sales.
Okay, so essentially it's a contract sales organization.
Correct.
Pretty much. Okay.
Exactly.
So, okay. I got it. Okay, so that's okay. Let's see here. Okay, so let's just kind of wrap up here. Question. Okay, what is the performance standard for Health Canada in this last phase of review for Reduvo?
I mean, that obviously can go as far as 180 days typically. I mean, that's how far. That's where, again, I was saying our job is to try and cut that down by answering fast and providing, complete answers so they don't come back with a clarification on that.
Okay. So so it's interesting. Okay, so essentially with the Reduvo, you're going to be selling essentially. So TBP is going to keep the majority of the revenues that come in because you're selling it yourself.
Correct.
I mean, through a contract, essentially through commission salespeople, basically, which is like
correct. And keeping in mind for us, it's important too to be seen with Reduvo because it's our first drug, so it's like our flagship in a sense. Here comes a real pharma in the eyes of physicians. They've never heard about us, so now they'll hear about us through a sales force that represents us. So they'll hear about Reduvo. And automatically, next time we're talking about a clinical trial, or just earlier, at 11 today, I was on a Montreal radio show answering questions about ARDS and its potential use of our drug, in the COVID crisis. So when physicians hear, Tetra, they'll now say, "Oh, that's the Reduvo drug, guys." So they'll be able to see what else. So it's very important to have that flagship. If I license it to somebody else, again, you don't hear about Tetra. So it's, you kind of lose that advantage. Business-wise, it may be, better for, to basically give it to somebody and have net sales, but that's kind of a financial exercise that the company will obviously go through to see for the long term. But right now, the vision is to really go out and use this as a flagship to get known in Canada. Position then Quicksleeve. Quicksleeve will be the next one. They'll be coming potentially in this field, and it's very important for people to see that.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. When can we expect the launch of Reduvo Adversa? Adversa?
Okay, Reduvo Adversa, that's what we used to call our PP002. The Adversa one is a fully patented, it's a sustained release version of THC. That one would follow. So obviously our goal is first to get the Reduvo to be approved through its DIN. And it's important because it's kind of, for Canada, it's like a 505(b)(2) strategy in the States, where in the States I can piggyback on the previous one. So it reduces my burden for the Adversa drug. But the Adversa drug is the next one afterwards. So once the Reduvo gets approved here, that's our first DIN, then we will be ready as a company to go after the Reduvo Adversa, and that's a global one. So there you're talking about United States approval, European approval, everywhere.
Okay, so we got a couple questions on the inhalation patent. Okay, so if you can address it. Okay, so Greg is saying, is it true when somebody said that if there's a patent granted on the cannabis inhalation to Tetra, anybody inhaling cannabis will have to pay royalties to Tetra?
Well, it wouldn't be the people inhaling the cannabis. It would be companies selling and promoting a product for inhalation that would violate basically our intellectual property. So obviously, if they don't have their own intellectual property, or even if they do, if they infringe what we're claiming, then they will have to give us royalties on their sales.
Okay,
that's
and
how it works.
Okay, and your claim is on which aspect? It's sort of like for...
It's going to be on the composition.
Okay.
Of what it's doing, and then it goes beyond where we're able to protect unique composition for even use claims. So it gets to be very wide. This is just a start. So for us, you're looking at a portfolio eventually of patents protecting everything that is delivered by inhalation to the use of inhalation.
Okay. Okay. So is there any cannabis products being sold today, legally today, that would be in jeopardy from your inhalation patent?
I wouldn't be able to name one if there was. Normally, what would happen at a certain stage, companies, once you realize that somebody is infringing your patent, they would receive a letter from us letting them know they are infringing our patent, so that they are aware of it. And that's important because the day your patents do get granted, you cannot just come out, say 2 years after that and say, well, you're infringing my patent, now you owe me money. So you have to show that you are, and you have the intention of enforcing your patent protection. Otherwise, you can invalidate your protection in the United States. So for sure, the moment we know our patent is going to make it through, we'll be letting companies know those that are infringing.
Okay. A couple of people are asking, we got a bunch of questions about, financing, stock price. Like, they're saying, hey, is the next time the stock runs up, are you going to do another financing? Like, get people asking that type of thing. What is?
Well, what's typical of a biotech until I start to get revenues, obviously, we're pretty transparent in our prospectus on that as to where our money takes us to. So basically, our goal is to deliver on some major milestones with Reborn, with the ARDS 003 drug. Hopefully, by then, we'll have grown to at least 100-fold our share price. And but for sure, our next goal for us is to get some strategic financing, institutional. That's been my goal, is to get the institutions to come in, recognize who we are, and they're waiting. They're waiting to see Reborn themselves, and I understand. We're really at the tip of the iceberg, and that then obviously is a game changer for me because it's very, very different. But we can't get to a point either that we're going to run out of money, because it's going to do the opposite. As a CEO, and even if I don't, the board's going to, kind of hit me and say, what are you doing? I can't slow down anymore. And nobody wants me to slow down. Reborn is moving. I can't stop it, and I don't want to. And so, and that's why it's
I mean,
essential.
ultimately, the stock price is going to take care of itself. I mean, it's like it doesn't matter if listen. The bottom line is you got to get the product on the market, and once you get the product on the market, nobody's going to care if there was finance and it was dilution. This is
the ups and downs.
It's really like in the scheme of things, it's like it's really nothing. I mean, it's
people forget it's Quicksleaf is after that $60 billion market. And ARDS is a $132 billion market. If I start to deliver on these, this is major. So yes, you're correct. These are just ups and downs of a biotech.
Okay, so interesting question. Okay, so if you do a successful morphine head-to-head trial, can you do something for epilepsy? I guess he's talking about like the GW Pharma.
Yeah, well, Tetra is not. We haven't focused on epilepsy or any neurological conditions with Quicksleaf. Obviously, if there were companies interested in those applications, we'd be interested in partnering with them. But we have to focus. We have to keep our focus, which is right now on attacking the opioids and bringing Quicksleaf as an alternative to that. But yeah, I mean, that's how can I say, that is a unique market for us as well for our drug. Especially, we have intellectual property that would protect us. Would have the freedom to operate. In any case, I think GW's intellectual property or marketing exclusivity is going to run out in 2023. So, a company that would come in, get a new drug in for epilepsy would be able to get the FDA to approve it. But they would need their own intellectual property and freedom to operate from an intellectual property point of view, which we would have. But that's why it's important for companies like Tetra Biotechs to basically create and continue to create intellectual property to protect itself, protect the unique compositions, basically showing how our composition is different than that of GW's in its blend. And that's where all the science game is in.
Okay, so to wrap up, you have in terms of next let's call it 30 days news flow. Just wrap up on that. What should we be looking at right now? Next 30 days or so. What we're developing.
Next 30 days, you obviously got updates on Reborn trial. People will start to hear about that, and then obviously on the ARDS 003 updates on that as well. I'd say those are the expected ones for sure.
So in the Reborn, so over the next month, we're going to be getting regular updates on. Okay, here's what's happening in terms of. Essentially, does the pain go? Does the pain go away or not, or no? Right? I mean, it's binary, right? There's no real gray area. I don't think.
Oh, that's right. There's no gray area. The person is relieved or not, and faster than morphine or not. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
And that's key. I mean, if it is the same, it's still interesting because it's a safer product for use in these patients. But obviously, my goal is to show what we believe, which is that this drug is faster in relief than an opioid.
Okay. And do you think you're expecting more patients to be enrolling more patients this month also, the next 30 days?
Oh yeah, for sure. Other patients being screened. I mean, this is an ongoing thing.
And when they get enrolled, I mean, do you get data right away? In other words, let's say you get a new patient next Monday. Can you give them the drug right away, and then you start getting data?
The moment they're enrolled, that's it. First is identified, then he goes into that 7 days of, I'll call it stabilization, to be sure their background pain meds are stable. You don't want a physician to have to increase for the background pain. That's the pain they have all the time. That's not the flare-ups. So that has to be stable. So we want to see that to be stable for 7 days. Then they officially become enrolled into the trial. And that we will always have people going through those phases. Hopefully all of them will make it and be enrolled, but patients will continuously be screened all the time. And again, if I have to, I can go to radio shows, social media, talk to pain patient consortiums and try and get them to refer patients as well. There are multiple mechanisms out there if we have to. But I'm pretty confident 20 patients, we should be good.
Okay. 20 patients. Okay, so basically this month, so this is like a really important near-term catalyst. So if you're going to get this data, which you can announce, about the pain, does the pain go away or not? Within the next few weeks, we should be hearing something.
Well, for sure, the first patients will be finishing in, by the end of this month. Obviously, the first patient will have good info on them. There might be more than one that same thing as they come in. And it's just gonna, the data is gonna keep coming in all the time because it's open label. I don't get it directly, just that's the way it works. Obviously, these documents are electronic. We call them electronic case report forms. So we do have staff at Tetra in our clinical group that will be seeing that. And at one point, obviously, they'll get a call from me and I'll say, okay, I want an update. Where are we? How's it going? Does it look, exactly what we think is happening? And that's the point where I'm then going to decide to update the market.
Okay, excellent. All right, so this is, essentially, the way I look at it from an investor standpoint, a couple of these one of these news releases on this reborn trial could really move the stock in a big way. If you
some shareholders I've seen,
we could have something.
December is never a boring moment. Tetra is always active in news releases in December. Well, we won't be disappointing them this summer, that's for sure.
Okay.
They shouldn't take a too long vacation unless they're bringing their iPhones to follow Tetra.
Guy, I'm going to end on that note. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining our live stream. We'll see you in the next one.